my kitchen. I'm Célinie, and so this is Célinie's kitchen. So I thought for today, because I have to do it, I'd show you how I do my water kefir. Now for those of you who, I'm just going to get it out of this oven. It's just in the oven with the pilot light on. For those of you who live in cold climates like I do, it's hard to keep the house hot enough for anything that you're fermenting. So I tend to keep it in the oven with the pilot light on. But you know, you can't do that if you're sharing the house, because someone's going to come along and turn the oven on and roast whatever you're trying to ferment. So anyway, I live alone, so because my kids are gone for a while, and so I can afford to do this. If you can't use your oven, you'll have to find another warm spot for all your fermentation. So this is water kefir. Now I've been doing water kefir just for a few months, so I'm not an expert, but I can share what I know, and then if it interests you, you can go and find out a bit more online. Water kefir, it's kind of like I mean, you know about milk kefir, or about yogurt, or all those ferments, sauerkraut or whatever. It's fermented, so you have these what we call grains, but they're not. I mean, they're nothing related to grains that grow on a bush or on the ground or whatever. And then they basically ferment sugar water. So those who want the benefit of kefir, like milk kefir, but can't have milk for whatever reason, you can maybe do water kefir. And even those who can do both. Water kefir is really interesting because it tastes, I'm going to open up a bottle and I'll drink some. I mean, I'd share it with you, but you know, we can't do everything online, can we? So it's very nice. It's fermented sugar water. So by the time it's fermented, there's not much sugar left, and it's very nice and fizzy from the second fermentation, which is why sometimes I open it and it's very fizzy and it goes whoosh, all over the place. So I try and control it, but this probably wouldn't be too bad, but I'll just do it in a bowl just in case. Oh, there you can see it coming up. Oh, sorry, it is got a lot of bubbles in it. And so you get this very lovely bubbly drink. Sorry, I'm stuck with this now because it really is, I don't know if you can hear it. I'll have to let this calm a bit. And it tastes really nice. But mind you, you know, again, if you don't like fermented things, you might not like the taste. You know, I've been drinking kombucha for years, so I quite like the taste of fermented things. But you know, when you think about it, beer is fermented. It's just a fermented taste that we're more used to. So this one has been, I don't know. And then, so I do a second fermentation. Last week I did it, I had some cranberry juice, so I did it with cranberry juice. This one is made with apple. Sometimes I do it with cherries. Oh, and vanilla, it's so nice. And then I have a few that I've been doing with extra lemon juice and vanilla, and it kind of like a fizzy lemonade. So it tastes really nice. But you know, I gave some to some of my neighbors and they didn't like it at all, but I gave it to some of the neighbors downstairs and they really liked it. I really like it. So, you know, if you were to decide that you wanted water kefir, it'd be interesting maybe if you could taste it from someone and get a sense of whether you like it. The reason why we drink it, apart from the fact that it tastes really nice and it's a really good way to get lots of liquid down you, is it has all the good stuff that fermented things have, so probiotics and all that stuff that's good for your gut or whatever. So I mean, it's an interesting way to do that. This is why people drink, I mean I do it as well, this is why we drink kombucha. It's maybe not why we drink beer, but you know, there's all that old tradition of sorry, I'm getting there. There's all this old tradition of beer being good for you and full of B vitamins, and they say the same thing with water kefir. It has all these B vitamins. Somehow the process of fermenting the sugar releases all the probiotics and B vitamins. So when I gave birth to my son 30 years ago in London, my midwife was a woman from Ireland. And you know, after I gave birth, she's like, have a Guinness, it's full of B vitamins, it's really good, it's really fortifying for you. Of course, I mean, I'm sure nowadays not many midwives would say, you know, have a beer after you give birth, but it's that sense of all this fermented stuff is really good for you. Of course, if you have anything that's fermented that is then pasteurized, you're getting rid of all the goodness of the fermentation, which is why a lot of us end up making it ourselves, because I don't think in Canada, even if you buy sauerkraut, you know, it's been pasteurized, so you get the flavor, you're not getting the goodness of it. I don't think you can necessarily sell things There. Oh, we're getting there. Sorry. Sometimes it does take a while, or else it'll just go all over the place. I mean, I've done it, I've opened it, I'm talking away, I don't realize. Next thing I know, there's like kombucha or kefir like everywhere, all over me, all over the kitchen. It can be rather disastrous, which is why I do it in a bowl to try and catch it. There we go, look at that. Can you see that? Isn't that great? It's all natural bubbles and it tastes really good. So anyway, if I've convinced you that you wanted to try some water kefir, what you would do is make a mixture of water and sugar, and hang on, and I'm going to drain this off and put some in bottles. And now there's questions about what kind of sugar to use. Do you want me to do it over on that side? Okay, hang on, sorry, we're negotiating over here. I'm going to do this on this side. Oh, look at this. So, you know, and if you don't have a fancy thing like this, you can just ferment it in anything that's big enough to hold. I do about 8 cups of water at a time. You can do it in mason jars. You can do it, you know, in anything that... I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to do about that much and fill the rest with apple juice. So you'll want a container. It doesn't have to have a spout. Any kind of container. Obviously glass is best, because when we're fermenting, you can ferment in... ceramic, in glass. You don't want to ferment in metal, and you really don't want to ferment in plastic. Mind you, some people do, you know, some people get those big vats that they make pickles in or whatever, restaurant vats, and ferment it. So I figure, I think like I'm going to have some while it's all bubbly. I think like many things in cooking, you can experiment, but I would generally stay away from plastic. I mean, generally we want to stay away from plastic anyway, you know, it's kind of killing things in the oceans. It's just like, plastic is terrible, really. Oh, it's nice and appley. Very nice. So I'll just get a few more bottles. So you get your container, you'll put, you know, you can start with 2 cups or 4 cups. I do 8 cups. And then you'll want to put sugar in it. So for 8 cups of water, I put half a cup of sugar. And then if you're doing, you know, 4 cups, you'll put a 1/4 cup of sugar. Some people put more sugar. I wouldn't put much less than that. And what I'll do is I'll put some references under the video, so you know you don't have to remember all this or write down notes, you know, of certain proportions. Oh, now you see it's been blocked by my kefir grains, so I'll just take them out. I'll come around here and do this. So I'll take my kefir. I'll just wash my hands, make sure they're very clean before I get into there. I mean, I washed them before, but now that I'm putting them straight in, So I keep my kefir grains in a bag, but you know, you can just leave them loose. But now my bag is getting quite full. They obviously need enough room to grow. Now I started about 2 months ago with about 4 grains, and now I have a whole bunch. I'll show them to you in a minute, but I just want to finish what I was saying about the sugar. You can do it. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to just squeeze these lemons out. You can do it with white sugar, which is the cheapest way of doing it. Raw sugar is really good. It's also very expensive. So if you can afford, I'm just going to put a bit more here. If you can afford raw sugar, there's different names. There's Rapadura, turbinado. All these sugars actually have more minerals. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's best to use sugar that has minerals, but we can't always afford that. And we don't always have access to that because you have to go to a health food store or whatever. So, you know, if white sugar is what you have access to, that works fine as well. So I'm just draining this off, and I'm going to give my pot a bit of a rinse. Sorry, just to make sure it's clean. that'll be fine for this time. You know, every once in a while I give a really good wash, but I don't have to do that this time. Now I'm going to put some apple juice because that's what I have. Our co-op had a bit of a do, and this was leftover apple juice from that. So I live in a housing co-op, so I'm just going to fill it up. And this is all for the second fermentation. Now, you don't have to do a second fermentation. It really improves the flavor, and it's the second fermentation, oh, that's a bit too much, that gives it all the bubbles. And you know, part of the fun of drinking it is having those bubbles, I think. So we'll do a second fermentation. The first fermentation in a fairly warm environment, like my oven with the pilot light on, is about 48 hours. And that's about the time for a good second fermentation as well. So, yeah, that looks right. So that's lid, I'm going to put this. So these will do a second fermentation for about 48 hours. But like you saw, if you're going to leave it for longer than that, you're going to have an explosion. I mean, as you saw, this it really does ferment and bubble and everything, which is part of the fun. But you could put it in the fridge. I have some in the fridge just to slow down that second fermentation. But I don't like drinking things straight from the fridge. I have to take it out and warm it up. But most people really like stuff straight from the fridge, so you can just put it in the fridge for the second fermentation. Now this one, there's always a wee bit less in it. I'll just have to leave it like that. I'll put a bit of lemon juice in it. So you can the first fermentation, I would always do it just straight up. The second fermentation is where you'll be adding different herbs or different juices or whatever strikes your fancy. And like most things in the kitchen, you can experiment. I mean, if worse comes to worse, you'll have one bottle that you think, oh, I don't like that too much, you know. But you might discover flavors that you absolutely really, really like. Now, some questions about water kefir. Does it have sugar in it? Most of the sugar has been eaten away by the kefir grains. There's always a wee bit left. So is it, you know, some people will say that people who are particularly have to be careful with sugar, maybe because of diabetes or whatever, can have it. You know, I'm not a nutritionist. I would say go online, read about it. But it does have, you know, most of the sugar has been eaten away, but it is, you know, it is a fermentation. I would think if you're hyper, for whatever reason, you have to avoid sugar and you want fermentation, then fermented vegetables might be the safest way to go. Now I'm just opening up my bag because I want to show you these water kefirs. They're the grains, they're beautiful. They smell nice and they're absolutely lovely. I don't know if you can see them close up. Can you see that? They look like jewels. Aren't they beautiful? Those are nice, healthy. They can be bigger, they can be smaller. The grains, you know, they like all fermentation, they become quite a... I'm trying to make sure you can see them. Can you see them? Look at that. Aren't they cute? They're like pearls. I mean, and they feel really nice. They're kind of gelatiny. They're very cute. So those are healthy grains. And like I said, though, like all fermentation, they do modify according to where they are and what they're eating and drinking and stuff. These are, I call them grains, but you know, that's just a word for it. They're actually scobies. A scoby is a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. They could have called it a symbiotic community of yeast and bacteria, but then that would be scoib, and that doesn't sound as good as scoby. So scoby it is. So, you know, you think bacteria and yeast, but it's actually really, really cool. I mean, that's all fermentation is based on bacteria and yeast. So kombucha is a scoby, a different kind of scoby. Milk kefir is a scoby, but again, a different kind. These are water kefir grains, and I think they're beautiful. So like I said, these are healthy ones. Now, I'll keep them in a bag and I try and make sure they have enough room to grow. You don't have to, you can just have them loose. And then when it came to the stage, you see where I was pouring it out? That stage you would put it through some kind of filter, because you do want to keep the grains for your next fermentation. So, you know, we're almost done. The question is, so we went through the water, we didn't go through water, the best is mineral water, so well water, or, you know, water that's not been hyperchlorinated or whatnot. But again, the reality is most of us, billions and billions in the world, we live in cities, we don't have access to well water. So, you know, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I can go, and if any of you choose to do that, that's fine. You can go down to the supermarket and get a big tub of water that's well water, or, you know, that's not chlorinated, in a big thing of plastic, and then you have to get it home, you know. And then I'm thinking, you know, I'm sorry, for those of you who like bottled water, it's not actually very ecological. You have all the plastic, and then you have the plastic waste, and then you have to get it home. And so, you know, unless I have a cart so I can bring my groceries home, many of us will use a bus or use a car. And so you're thinking, oh my God, so I'm being healthy and I'm taking care of my health, but at the expense of the health of the planet. So anyway, it's up to you if you choose to use bottled water. I don't. So what are the options? Well, the options for me are to use city water, which has chlorine, and in our municipality it has chloramine. So I'm thinking, oh, that's not very good. But you know, my grains last 2 months have been fine with city water. What I do though is I do let some of the chlorine evaporate. But chloramine doesn't evaporate, which is why cities use it, because I mean, you can put it in and it kind of indestructible as compared to chlorine. So it has chloramine. Now, some people will say that you can get rid of some of the chloramine, or disintegrate it into its components, which is chlorine and ammonia, by putting a wee bit of molasses in the water and letting it sit. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I've been doing that. And my grains are fine. But again, you know, if you get some grains, maybe start out with well water or spring water, and then experiment. You know, will your grains be okay in your city water? Saying that, I should have done that. I should have, you know, just not even done the molasses thing and just tried it straight up. But I am doing the molasses thing, partially because if you're using city water, you'll want to add some minerals, because kefir grains, or the scobies, love minerals. Hang on. So I'm going to start drawing off my water. I can do it over here. I want 8 cups of water. So the kefirs love minerals. I'm just going to bring this over here, and I'm just going to draw out my 8 cups of water. I do measure only because I want to figure out how much sugar to put. With a lot of cooking, you don't have to measure, you know, just add a bit of salt or whatever. So I'm just going to draw off my 8 cups. Yeah, so you want some minerals in your water. Now, one way of getting minerals is to use mineral-rich sugar, like the raw sugar, the turbinado sugar. If you do use white sugar, because let's face it, we want to be healthy, but we all on a budget, and white sugar is the cheapest. So if you are using white sugar, you can put a wee bit of molasses in it. And then what I do is I add to 8 cups, I add 1/8 of a teaspoon of, what's it called? Bicarbonate de soude, baking soda. Sorry, I'm a francophone, and as I probably told you, I have a bit of, anyway, I can't even blame it on being francophone. I have a bit of brain damage and I forget words all the time. So you put in a bit of baking soda, 1/8 of a teaspoon, and I also put in 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground eggshells. But you know, because eggshells have all sorts of poop on them and stuff, I keep my eggshells and then I boil them for 5 minutes, and then I bake them in the oven the next time I'm making a cake or something. And I get this calcium-rich stuff that I can eat. It's a powder, then I powder it. And so I'm going to put I have my 8 cups of water. I'm going to put this back, and after the camera stops rolling, I'm going to fill this up with water again and put a wee bit of molasses in it. So let's start with the minerals. I'm going to put an eighth of a teaspoon, which is not that much, just the tiniest thing. It's basically like a big pinch of my powdered eggshell. Now, for those of you who are thinking, yeah, right, I'm going to be boiling my eggshells and baking them and powdering them, you can use this. Now, I've never used it, but I have some in case I need to. It's concentrates, which are trace mineral drops, and many people use that. They'll put a drop in that, and it's just enough minerals to keep your kefir grains happy. So it ends up being fairly economical as well. But you know, I kind of like the old-fashioned. I like to use, you know, what I can access myself. So I'm going to put an eighth of a teaspoon of the baking soda in, and I'm going to use white sugar. But like I said, the best is to use some of that, any raw sugar you can get. You can go to the health food store and get rapadura, turbinado. There's a few other kinds of raw sugars around, you know. Or you can use brown sugar, which is basically white sugar with molasses. Now I'm going to put half a cup of white sugar, and I'm going to put a wee bit of molasses in it as well. So, you know, I know some people are thinking, oh my God, am I really going to do all that just to get water kefir? But once you get into a rhythm, then it actually doesn't take that long, you know. So I'm just going to put a wee bit of molasses. I'll use a fresh spoon over here. Now I use organic molasses, which is non-sulfur, because it tastes really nice. It has a bit of a harsher taste than fancy molasses, but I think it's lovely. So just a wee bit, because here we're just adding minerals. We're not adding any of this for flavor or anything, you know. There we go. And that'll keep my kefir grains happy. If you want to know if your grains are happy, they will be growing in size. After 2 days, they should be doubled in size. If they're not, there might be a lack of minerals. So I'm just going to mix all this up. Now let me think, did I forget? Oh, the one thing that I'll have to tell you to remember is if you do have a bottle with a spout, is before you put any water in it to close the spout, ask me how I know, because I sometimes forgot and then it made a big mess. So I'm just going to mix it all up. Some people actually will talk about heating the water up, I guess because that helps the sugar dissolve more quickly. I don't, I just do it all at room temperature. Now I'm going to add a slice of lemon with the peel, which means that it's organic lemon, because you know you don't want to use the peel of a non-organic lemon. They put all sorts of waxes and all sorts of weird things. I'm thinking, oh goodness, the things we do to our food, you know. So there you go, all mixed up. I'm going to get my lemon. This is my lemon from the last batch, so I'm going to put that in the compost. So I just love these bags. I've been taking lemons out of them for ages. I can never find the hole. I'm sure it happens to everyone. So you can tell this is an organic lemon because it's not perfect, but that's great. I'm going to wash it anyway. And I'm just going to slice it, put a big thick slice in there with the rind and everything. And these are all little things to keep the grains happy. And like I said, I know this seems like an awful lot of work, but I just do it, you know, in the morning when I'm ready. So there, how does that look? Now I will add my grains. Now, you know, there's still enough room for them to, you know what, I'm going to take them out of the bag, because if they're going to double, as you can see, there won't be room in them, and they need space, and the liquid needs to come into contact with them. So probably the next batch, I'll have to get rid of some of the grains. Now this is how we can share our grains, and that we should talk about. I'm just going to get rid of some of this spots of, we should talk about where to get kefir grains. Now as you can see, the next batch I'm going to have to give some away or throw them away, or some people eat them. I might see if my cats want to eat them. But you know, if someone lived close by and wanted some of my kefir grains, I would give them away. And this is how we manage to share our cultures. The same way with the kombucha. That's how we all get our kombucha culture. Someone gives them to us, or you buy it or whatever. So where to get kefir grains, if I've interested you enough, you're thinking, oh, that looks kind of weird but interesting. Now I like, and this is a basic political point of view, you know, I like to buy or to start local, whether I'm buying or sharing. And then if not local and small businesses, local small businesses. And if not, then small businesses that are kind of local, like a bit outside. And then if not, small businesses that are a bit further away. And then eventually, if you really need something and it has to be a big business or it has to be something that's really far away, I'll do that. So there are these steps. Now, again, to me, this is you know, it's about community, about sustaining our community. It's about creating sustainable communities. So it's very important to me. Now, I've got my water kefir grains. I didn't know anyone who had any. So I went on Kijiji and I got them from a local woman who sold them to me for $5. Very kind woman, quite an interested woman, really interested in sharing what she had and sharing her knowledge. So that was really interesting. Where to get water kefir grains? So there's local, you can ask in your co-op, in your church groups, you know, in your community around you. Yoga communities, people involved in the yoga community often have milk kefir and water kefir grains. Kijiji, Craigslist, those are all good places, and some people will give them away. I would give them away. Some people will sell them, but you know, the woman gave me $5, but she gave them to me in a container. You know, so often that $5 it is a fair price. And then if you do, you know, if you tried all that and you can't find any water kefir grains, you can go online. There is a local, well, she's not local, she's in Canada, a lovely woman, very small business in Gravelbourg in Saskatchewan. How cool is that? And the name of her company is Culture Mother. I'll put all that down below. So you can go to her. She'll, you know, ship anywhere within Canada, and she's very careful. She'll ship it like on a Monday morning so that you get it as soon as possible. She won't ship it on a Thursday or Friday, and then it'll languish in a post office. By the time you get it, they'll be dead. I mean, these are live things, you know. So she's really careful about when she ships it. She'll tell you right away. She'll ship it, like I said, on the Monday morning, so you can get it as quick as possible and it still be alive. But that's within Canada. Failing that, you can go online. When I first started using kefir and kombucha, none of this was popular. You can get it all online. In the States, there's all sorts of organizations that sell them. So you can access them that way. Now, I've finished with this. I'm going to put it back in its warm spot. And I'm going to let it sit there for 2 days. You know, and if the weather ever warms up, I can just leave it on the counter. You know, I mean, it's just, we're having a terrible spring. It's really cold and it's kind of depressing, but we're trying to keep our spirits up. As soon as the house warms up, I won't have to keep it in a warm spot in the oven. I'll have it on the counter. So, you know, I really like the taste of it. And, you know, it took me a bit longer because I was explaining and I was talking. Once you get into a rhythm, just get up in the morning, just do it, put it away, you know. Now what I have left to do, apart from putting all this away and washing stuff, is to fill my container where I let the chlorine kind of evaporate slowly. And I would love to find out, maybe one day I'll go to a pet food store where they have aquariums and trying to get those strips so I can actually see whether after I do that the chlorine level goes down or not. But, you know, like I say, experiment. And you can use your kefir grains for any carbohydrate rich liquid. So you can kefir your coconut water, you can kefir your Gatorade, you can kefir all sorts of stuff. I add the juice on the second fermentation, but you can add any sort of juice, you can add herbs, you can do all sorts of stuff. You know, the sky's the limit. You can just test it out. If you are going to experiment though, I mean, if you want to put your kefir grains in coconut water or in Gatorade or whatever and see what comes up, I would suggest, you know, experiment. That's the whole thing about cooking, eh? We try it out, see if we like it, see if it's good. But I would always keep a small batch of kefir grains just in the plain sugar water, so that if your experiments kind of get wonky, you always have a good batch. Now, fermentation, you'll want to be careful. If it has mold going on it, stay away from it. If it smells or tastes a bit off, stay away from it. Start over, get new grains. You know, we do have to be careful. But these scobies and fermentation things, people have been doing them for thousands of years. thousands of years, so there's no need to be afraid of it. If you're not sure, you know, taste someone else's to get a sense of what it's supposed to taste like. I'm just realizing I have all these little grains all over the place. I should put them in the compost. I feel like a murderer if I don't take care of them. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, I'll give you a reference. Hang on. Sandor Katz, he's written about fermentation. He has 2 books. The Art of Fermentation is one. He has another one. Called Wild Fermentation. He has a blog and he's a very generous man. You have questions, he'll answer you on his blog. He talks about fermentation. He'll talk about water kefir, milk kefir, sauerkraut. He's like really into all sorts of fermentation things that I never knew existed. So it's very interesting to read. The woman I spoke to about Culture Mother, she also has instructions on how to keep your kefir or fermentation going. And because it's popular, you can get all sorts of things online. Now, if you're going online, I would say the best resource I have found so far is by a man called Dom something, D-O-M something, D-O-A something. If you write in Dom, D-O-M, Kefir, you'll get onto his website. He has all sorts of web pages, but he's been doing this kefir and water kefir and milk kefir for years. He has videos, he has pictures of, so you can look at the water kefir grains under a microscope, and he talks about the history of it. I mean, he's a very, very knowledgeable person about all this kefir, and so he would be the person to go to for information. I'll put all that in the comments at the bottom there. And if you have any questions, if I can answer them, I will. Maybe someone else who's reading your comment has the answer. We can share our comments about this. But I love drinking it. Like I said, I know it's good for you. It has all this probiotics or whatever, but it's actually really nice. I like drinking this bubbly kind of tasty stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. Thanks.
Dans la cuisine de ces